So thank you everybody for joining us for this very special lunch with the friends. We have some of our education team here with us today to share about the No Boundaries to the Boundary Waters program, which is a really great program to help get kids up north into the Boundary Waters. I'm going to introduce all of them and then kind of give you a rundown on the order of things for this lunch with the friends. So first we have Izzy Smith, who is our Twin Cities education coordinator, who is a lifelong paddler and devotee of Type 2 fun. Izzy came to the Friends after years of guiding for wilderness inquiry and working at Midwest Mountaineering. As the education coordinator, she believes everyone deserves access to green space, especially wilderness areas like the Boundary Waters. She loves empowering and connecting youth to the BWCA and giving the future generation of wilderness lovers and protectors the tools they need to explore this special place. And then we also have Rachel Headland, who is our Northern Education Coordinator. From the first time Rachel put a canoe on her shoulders, she knew she would spend the rest of her life connected to the outdoors. She spent 5 years guiding at Camp Minosian, and for the last 10 years has worked for the Voyager Outward Bound School. Rachel has led 50-day canoe trips in the Arctic and has been a part of some rad masochistic adventures, such as paddling from International Falls to Lake Superior in 99 hours and racing in the Yukon River Quest in 2016. She's based out of our office in Ely. And then also on the call today, we have Adon Torres, who is an avid explorer and creative. You can find Adon climbing, cycling, camping, and creating in varied media. His foundational focus has always been justice, integrity, and accessibility for all. A recent addition to the board of directors at Friends and the education committee, this aligns well with his work at Project Success, which works to help students find their purpose. So we have Adon, Rachel, and Izzy here. Rachel and Izzy are going to start us out by having a little interactive presentation for us. And then also after that presentation's over, we'll have a little mini panel with Adon asking Rachel and Izzy some questions. So Izzy and Rachel want to take it away.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks, Maggie, for introducing us, and hopefully we'll have a rad presentation for you guys. Today, Rachel and I are going to share a little bit about our education program here at the Friends. Our program is fondly known as No Boundaries to the Boundary Waters, and a large amount of funding for this program comes from the LCCMR fund, which we'll get into a little bit. Before we start this presentation, we're going to do a little bit of an icebreaker activity together. So first things first, if you guys could chime in the chat. This is a fan favorite, very classic in the environmental education, outdoor education world, little get to know you activity. But if you guys could chime in the chat, if you could only eat potatoes in one form for the rest of your life, what would it be? You know, French fries, baked potatoes, mashed potatoes. There's a lot of ways. We'd love to see what your preferred potato is. Okay. Are we talking loaded baked or regular baked? Okay. Yum. Okay, love to see these answers. Today I'm feeling like a hash brown gal today. Awesome. We love that. Well, does anybody else want to drop their preferred potato? We've got some baked potatoes. Baked potatoes are taken number one today. Baked potatoes, some Culver's fries, cheesy au gratin potatoes. Yum. Yum, you guys. You have good potato taste. Amazing. Awesome. Well, Rachel's going to jump in and tell you about the background of some of our programming, and we'll take it from there.
Awesome. Thanks, Izzy. Fun to learn about everybody's favorite potatoes and, you know, a very helpful tool when you're trying to first break the ice with a group of kids before they head out on a new adventure. But as Izzy mentioned at the beginning, we feel really grateful that we've got a ton of support and funding to help make our trips and our program accessible. And two pieces we want to share with everyone in particular. The Thomas Flint Memorial Fund was used to provide scholarships to students prior to our work with the LCCMR funding that we get through the state legislature. So we're still really grateful that you know, was our initial way of starting out, connecting kids with the outside, and we're still able to use a lot of that funding tied into our LCCMR funding. So we're super grateful for that fund. And then the LCCMR is part of a legislative fund that you can apply for and get funding and aid to help make environmental connections throughout the state of Minnesota. So we're really grateful to have both of those funders and supporters helping us get lots of kids connected to the outdoors, and particularly the Boundary Waters. And in general, just to share one big number, we've through working through this project over the last few years, we've connected over 6,000 Minnesota students to the outdoors, and it's just been an incredible opportunity to utilize online resources, classroom visits, and then a lot of these trips that we'll actually make happen throughout the summertime as well. A little more of the brief history of where the No Boundaries program has come from. In 2019 was when we applied for the first LCCMR grant. And then 2020, as we all know, took a shift in the world, but our education director, Allison, did a ton of incredible work building out some online platforms and started to develop partners and connect with people, and then finally do some safe outdoor activities during that time period, and initially connecting with schools. And then from spring 2022 to 2024, we've been able to add additional staff like myself up in the northern part of the state, expand our trips, and just add and develop and keep growing our program in lots of incredible ways. Awesome. Okay, one more experiential education tool before Izzy chimes in with some more things. I'd love everyone to, wherever you are, just take a brief moment and we're going to integrate your five senses wherever you are and whatever you're doing. So take a brief moment and we'll just take probably 30-45 seconds, but yeah, experience what you're seeing around you. What do you hear? What can you feel, smell, and taste? So I'll be quiet for 30 seconds so you're not just hearing my voice, and then we'll come back together. Awesome. Thanks for taking a couple moments of silence and quiet. And, you know, in our houses, in our homes, you may have heard some different things like the dryer running or the TV upstairs. You might have realized you do need to turn on the air conditioning today or put a fan on, whatever it might be. But we share this because the first time we get a kid out into a wilderness area and let them do this activity and experience might be the first time they feel and hear and see and smell some of these things that they don't usually get the opportunity to do. So it's something that we really appreciate doing with the kids when they get out there, is something that's a huge part of what we're trying to do. So I'm going to pass it back to Izzy now.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. So I'm going to chat with you guys a little bit about kind of our program offerings. We have a bunch of different offerings across the board. And one of the things that our education director, Allison, really championed and piloted was our online teacher resources through our webpage. If you're a teacher or an educator, or if you know a teacher or an educator, we'd love to get you signed up with our online resources and our teacher educator network. You can go to our webpage and click the education drop down to kind of get involved and get access to these resources yourself. But our online resources are essentially a culmination of different units focusing on Boundary Waters topics, everything from kind of like ecology and ecosystems, Anishinaabe seasonal practices, human impact, as well as some really incredible wilderness explorers who have spent time in the BWCA. The really great bonus of these online resources is we're a small education team. There's 3 of us here full time. We have interns in the spring, summer, and fall, but there's hundreds of thousands of young people spread across the state of Minnesota, and we can't possibly get in front of everybody. So these are amazing resources that are free for teachers and educators to use. They're built out curriculum. There's worksheets and packets and continual education provided online, and they meet the current state benchmarks for science and learning. So if you're an educator and you're looking for kind of an additional added unit to something you're already studying, maybe you're looking at history of Minnesota, maybe your students are learning about ecosystems and food webs, there's different things here that you can plug into those lesson plans, and the curriculum is ready to go. So sign up if you're curious. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Rachel or myself. But a really great way to dive into our resources without opting into in-person visits, and just kind of experimenting with what we have to offer. The other really cool thing about that is the reach of it is massive. There's about 3,000 or 30,000 students that we've reached through those online programs, which is definitely our biggest numbers by far. And our educator network right now is hovering around that 550 mark and growing every year, especially in the fall. The next thing that we offer for our programming is classroom visits. This is something that we weren't able to do in 2020 and in 2021, but really in the past couple of years, we've dove headfirst into these classroom visits with youth across the state. Rachel being up north in Ely allows us to have that much more access to these northern classrooms and young people, which has been really incredible. Right now, there's a little over 6,000 students that we reach in classroom visits annually. That's a massive number for a team of 3 people, but it's been really, really incredible to be able to do that. Right under 8,000 program experiences have been provided, and the teachers that we work with are incredible. They've indicated that the programs are encouraging their students to spend time outside. And we have a 100% success rate of teachers recommending this program to others. This is a really great way for us to get in front of your students, to do maybe a one-off lesson. Maybe we're dropping by and doing one single lesson for all 6 periods of your 7th grade science class. Maybe a bunch of your high school students are coming outside and doing an adventure day where they're rotating through different stations with us, learning a little bit about animal skulls, how to portage a canoe, how to build a fire, and do some team building. The beautiful part about these classroom visits is they're really moldable to what you and your students want to get out of this day. So when we're working with educators, sometimes people are looking for precursors and prep maybe into the trip season, which Rachel will talk a little bit about. Other times teachers are looking for kind of that guest visit presentation on the history of the boundary waters. They really want to build that foundational knowledge. Sometimes we're working with classrooms that have students that are high needs, and we're introing and exploring these concepts in different ways. We want to make sure that these programs are adaptable and approachable, and the best way to kind of dip your toe in, so to speak, to what we offer is these classroom visits. And when you sign up for these, we really cater the programming to best fit our students. And it's the first time we get in front of the students, which is really exciting. It's the kind of that first stage of the relationship building that comes to blossom into sometimes multi-year partnerships. And it's definitely a really special time to kind of switch up the day-to-day classroom flow and get to know these amazing young people. And it all transitions into an opportunity to go on these amazing canoe trips, which Rachel's going to tell you about.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing all that, Izzy. And yeah, another incredible aspect of our program are these canoe trips that we offer in the summertime for our partner schools. And again, a lot of this is developed through this kind of tiered and scaffolded approach so that the students are learning about things in the classroom, and then we're coming to visit them in person, and then it comes to this incredible opportunity to go spend time in the boundary waters. And our big focus is creating these opportunities and making sure they're available for diverse and underserved students throughout the state. That's a big part of our mission and goal, is that there are a lot of kids all over the state that might not necessarily have the opportunity to go on an adventure like this. And so we want to make sure that that's accessible for everyone. And again, we've seen that from this experience, kids come back with, increased knowledge of the outdoors, increased understanding and connection to each other and knowing more about themselves. And in general, we just think it's, a really incredible opportunity for kids from the state to get out and experience this space and place that we all hold dear. And then ideally, at some point in time, they choose to help continue to protect and take care of this space. But in general, we're just really hoping for an incredible positive experience outside for these kids that truly deserve it. And again, a couple numbers just to share with you all. In 2022, we had 60 students heading out to the Boundary Waters on trips with 8 schools and organizations. And in 2023, we pretty much doubled that number of students. We had 123 students out and 11 organizations or schools. And this year we've added one more school, Harding High School. And we don't even quite know the number of students we'll have out in 2024 since they're all currently registering right now. But we're really proud of where that's all gone, and as always, are hoping to keep developing and moving it forward. You can keep going. Thanks, Maggie. And as I briefly said, the biggest goal for us of lots of different outdoor education programs have different goals and missions of what they're trying to have folks and kids experience when they go outside. But our big goal is just to provide this positive wilderness experience. We really believe that if you don't have that positive time out there, you're going to have a hard time wanting to protect or take care of a place. So, and anyone who's been to the Boundary Waters before, there are tons of highlights, and there's mosquitoes and thunderstorms, and we just want to make sure that we can help prepare the students and the chaperones so that when those things come up, they still feel like they can persevere through them and have a positive experience. So we do a ton of prep with the school. The schools we work with, we will end up going beforehand and doing a trip meeting and sharing information. We also show up at a time before their trips, and we'll actually teach them some of the basic skills like how to paddle and portage and pack their bags. So all of that doesn't feel as daunting on the first day. We also pass out some borrowed gear for them, like raincoats and bug nets and headlamps, stuff that people don't usually have just in their closet at home if they're not a regular camper. So we make sure they've got all of that. And then Maggie, if you want to head to the next slide, another really unique thing we've been able to keep doing, we've been working with different donors and organizations to help create additional gear and stuff for the kids to take home so they can have those positive memories last a lifetime and a longer period of time for them. So we're able to get some socks that the kids will all go home with. We've got a picture right there of them, pretty cool. And they each get to take home a trip journal, which is really special as well. So it's got a lot of things that they can utilize while they're out there, but they also can bring that home and share that with family and friends so they can share what they've learned about. A really awesome thing about the socks is that we work with an organization called Hippie Feet. And so those socks, they're about $30. And that pair they get, and it's just a really special opportunity for them to bring that home and have a local organization support them too. So that is an awesome part of our fundraising that happens for us, is that we're able to reach out and work with more partner organizations to keep the kids happy and successful on their expeditions.
Awesome. Our geographic reach for our program covers pretty much the entire state of Minnesota. A large portion has historically been in the Twin Cities and metro area, but Rachel has allowed for a lot more growth in the Northeast and hopefully continued growth in the Northwest and central Minnesota. Southern Minnesota is an area that we're hoping to expand to eventually. I saw a question in the chat. Do we come to Southern Minnesota? We definitely will if there's interest there. We work with grades 6 through 12. So wherever there's grades 6 through 12 interested in our work, we can make it possible to travel and visit those schools. A big focus of this scope is working with a really diverse population of students and increasing accessibility as kind of the overarching umbrella goal of these programs. So a majority of the schools that we work with, at least 25% of the students qualify for free and reduced lunch. You know, that number is only dependent on how many students hand in paperwork for qualifying for free and reduced lunch. So oftentimes the number is a lot larger than that. Half of our groups came from schools where the free and reduced lunch is at 70% of above. That's a massive thing that we see in schools across the state, whether they're public, private, or charter. Um, Scholarship dollars are oftentimes allocated to be used where there's greater financial aid in the community. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, what about maybe these private schools or these schools that have a really, really low free and reduced lunch rate? Is your program still available? Can you still come and visit and work with our students? We can. Sometimes there's just a cost associated with that. The big kind of overarching goal is that we're increasing access to communities, students, and young people that wouldn't typically have access to this education or these experiences. And oftentimes it goes hand in hand kind of with these percentage outcomes. We also work with organizations and schools that specifically serve BIPOC students. Over half of our schools we work with are mainly BIPOC communities. So again, increasing that access, increasing that equity. We're starting to see, from past generations to now, that the typical person and what we see in this outdoor world isn't necessarily a super strong white man, and that's incredible to see additional representation in the wilderness spaces and to empower these young people. A lot of times we're working with communities and students who are like, I don't think I could ever do this, or my family doesn't do this, or I've never even been camping before. And the goal is to give the tools back to these partner organizations and back to these schools and really foster that next generation of outdoor stewards and leaders, which is a diverse population. We're going to jump into another interactive activity with you guys. One of the things we do with every single trip group that we send out to the Boundary Waters is we talk about comfort zones. And as people, as humans, we naturally have different comfort zones for a massive range of activities. And the way that we kind of visualize these zones with these students is this target kind of logo that you're looking at right here. The green area in the middle, this is our comfort zone. It's where we feel safe. It's where we feel excited. We're ready to opt in and do the activity. We're like, yeah, I got this. I can do it. I'm stoked. The yellow zone, the middle area, this is our growth zone, our challenge zone, our learning zone. This is where you're down to try, but you might be a little bit nervous to try the activity. You might even be uncomfortable. You're probably going to want maybe a little bit of support. You might kind of teeter on the edge a little bit with how far am I going to opt in, but you're willing to push yourself and you're willing to try new things with support. And then the red zone is our panic zone. This is where the activity feels absolutely scary. It's too challenging or really uncomfortable, and you're not ready to push yourself into this zone, and you know that you won't like it. The thing about these comfort zones is they're dynamic. They move and they change. And one of the things that we work with our students going into the Boundary Waters for is the trip itself might fall into one category, and certain activities on the trip, like portaging a canoe or starting a fire or going swimming, might fall into other categories. We also always let our young people know that these experiences are really challenged by choice. So if young people don't opt into our trip the first year, they can always opt in a second year if we're still partnering with their schools, which usually we are. And we also let them know that if they're on a trip and there's something that they're not comfortable with and it's in their panic zone, we're never going to make them do anything they don't want to do. What we want to do is give them the tools and the support, the social and emotional support, and the encouragement to opt into things in their growth zone. Because as we continue to expose ourselves to things in our growth zone, they start to become things that are in our comfort zone. So we're going to do a little poll with you guys of some different activities to see what your guys' comfort zones are with a range of things. So Maggie's going to pop some polls onto the screen. And if you guys could answer whether you're green in your comfort zone, yellow in your challenge zone, or red in your panic zone. And and we might need Maggie to prompt us into when people have been done voting.
Yes, so the first one is on skydiving, and we have majority of people in the yellow zone. 9 out of 14 people have participated. I'm gonna end this one and go on to the next one.
Adventurous folks out here.
Oh, I can share results that way.
Wow, okay. Couple of you,
Okay.
skydiving is not for you.
Okay, the second one here, launching.
Underwater welding.
I don't even know what this is.
If you're an underwater welder and you're in the live stream right now, drop a hello in the chat.
Okay, I'm gonna share the results.
Whoa, some of you are ready to underwater weld. I love that. Again, a range of comfort zones. Making a grilled cheese sandwich. How do folks feel about making a grilled cheese sandwich? Are we comfortable? Maybe a little bit of a growth zone. Making a grilled cheese sandwich is not for me. Where do you guys fall? We're all comfortable making a grilled cheese sandwich. All right, love that. Next one is one that we ask our students oftentimes as an example for this question, but how do folks feel about public speaking?
It's interesting to see the results on the back end. Wow. Huh.
Okay.
A lot of people.
Huge range.
Comfortable.
This is a response we get a lot from our students, pretty similar ratings. And then our final question, go into the boundary waters. How do people feel comfort zone wise about heading to the boundary waters? Green, awesome, we love that. That's also a question we ask our students before the trip. Some of them are in the green zone. A lot of them are in the yellow zone. Hopefully we don't have any kids opting into the experience that are in the panic zone. But if we do, we have tons of tools to walk them through that and support them as they continue kind of that experience. This is a really good example of showing that there can be one activity and a huge group of people that really feel differently about the experience, which means the chaperones and the guides that go on these trips, one of their big roles is to support the young people as they navigate these challenge zones, and also to communicate to these kids, hey, one person or two people in your group might not feel ready to portage a canoe or might need a little bit more support. How can we support them? What tools do we have to encourage each other? What tools do we have to accept where other people are at? And also, how can we voice, hey, this is a little scary, I might need some help? These are all things that we go over with our students and the chaperones before they head into the boundary waters. Awesome. Rachel's going to chat a little bit more with you guys about kind of our reports on comfort and how this changes with young people.
Awesome. Well, we just want to wrap up a few more things to share with y'all before we get into the more question answer portion of today. But yeah, just as he shared, it's been incredible to look at the data the students and chaperones fill out an evaluation at the end of their trips, and we can see where they've increased that comfort and kind of expanded that comfort zone to grow a little bit in different parts of paddling, having some space from technology, and working together with their group, which is really important and powerful. And then Maggie, if you want to jump to the next slide. Another thing we just want to share with everyone is that, again, we feel really grateful to be able to work with so many incredible partners from all over the Twin Cities and the Ely area and the Gunflint Trail area. So here's a big list of so many of our partners that help make the trips possible by actually guiding and leading the trips, and then are just spaces that we can use, and also some of those donations that we're able to work with so that we can get the kids outfitted and feeling really comfortable on their Boundary Waters trip. A little fun note is that True North maps, every kid will come home with a Boundary Waters bandana map of the area where they paddled. So they can really actually bring that home and show their families what they mean when they say, I portaged a canoe 280 rods, where for most families, it's, what did you just say? So they can actually explain that on their bandana map, which is pretty special. And then for our final slide, this is kind of wrapping up where we started and where we're going, and we are just so excited by the numbers of students that we're reaching and the number of schools and organizations and students that we've gotten to connect to. And the dream is to keep growing this so that anyone in the state can have the opportunity to experience our program and to truly experience that there should be no boundaries to access the Boundary Waters. So we really appreciate y'all listening and learning more about our program specifically. And now I'll hand it back to Maggie as we move towards the question and answer portion.
Yes, so now Adon, who is on the board of directors for Friends of the Boundary Waters and the education committee, is going to ask Rachel and Izzy some questions about the program and their experience in the outdoor and environmental education field. So Adon, feel free to take it away.
All right. Thank you, Rachel, Izzy, and Maggie for all that intentional work and awesome data. And the photos are always a really nice thing to see as well. A couple questions I have, excuse me. How can supporters get more involved with No Boundaries?
Oh, that's a great question. I can kind of talk about the online opting in portion. So one of the first things you can do is sign up for our educator resources on our webpage. There's an education drop down. There'll be a little bullet for signing up for our resources. You can get on our mailing list and get in touch with Rachel and myself if you'd like us to do a visit to your school or wanting to use those virtual resources, or you're looking to plan a trip. Rachel, do you want to talk a little bit about how that might look like in the northern community?
Yeah, Izzy, that's exactly what I was thinking a lot about, is that what's been really exciting is adding this additional education coordinator position allows us a lot more access to just start connecting with schools in person and seeing if we'd be a good fit to support bringing the tripping program to your schools. So again, prior to my joining Friends at the end of January, it was just Izzy and Allison out of the Twin Cities. And so it was a long drive to and from the North Shore or Ely to connect with schools, but it's been great already for me to be up there and be able to access Bemidji and Cloquet and Grand Marais much more easily. So that's definitely something to plug, is that we're really excited to have an education person based out of the northern part of the state, and we're excited to connect with any schools in the northern part of the state that would be interested in working with us. It's really unique. I've lived in Ely for the last 10 years, but a lot of local kids in Ely have never been to the Boundary Waters before. So that's something that we are also really hoping to focus on and make happen, is that a lot of these gateway communities, even though they're so close to this area, have not had the access to get out and explore that place. So.
Wonderful. Thank you. What does a typical trip season look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. A typical trip season, all of our schools run through what we've kind of formulated as our trip cycle. So thinking of it kind of as a flowing circle, because different pieces of it run through. Usually this starts in the fall with in-person classroom visits to schools, like Rachel was just talking about, seeing if we're a good fit for your school. This in the kind of the middle of the winter, maybe New Year's time, eases into the trip pitch period of the cycle, where we're in person visiting your schools, getting in front of these students, and we're telling them about the experience that they have the opportunity to try and opt into. Right now, this time of year, springtime, early April, we're in the throes of our registration period, trying to get paperwork from middle schoolers and high schoolers, making sure everybody has what they need for their camps or their outfitters, because different schools go on these trips through different organizations. And then come the first week of June, our trips launch, and we have trips this year running all the way through that second to last week of August. We run those trips based on, you know, what works best for the schools and our outfitters simultaneously. Right before those trips go out during the end of the school year / still kind of into the middle or the early part of the summer, we're doing workshops and pre-trip meetings to prepare for the trips. And that again varies per school and depends on the time of year, but our trips that are leaving early June, we'll be doing workshops kind of mid-May. Our trips that are leaving kind of early August are maybe doing their workshops middle of the June time. So it's a staggering cycle, but the summer is by far our busiest season. And then we debrief at the end of the trip season with all of our schools and partners, figure out, you know, what could we have done differently, what worked really well, how can we continue to support these young people better. And we plan for the fall programming, and then boom, we're back in the schools in the fall and the cycle starts all over.
Wonderful. Um, how can I get my students or school involved in No Boundaries?
Rachel?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way is to reach out to us directly. We are, you know, we've got structures and systems in place to start looking at what your school makeup is and how your school is structured and formatted. And at this point, No Boundaries has a ton of experience of understanding, you know, could we visit during an advisory period or during a science class or whatever it might be. And then we're able to kind of talk through what would make sense. And oftentimes with a new school, we start by an initial visit of trying to run one of our course programs or lessons. We have some really incredible opportunities. One cool lesson we have is a skull investigation where we can actually
Ooh.
bring in skulls of mammals from the Boundary Waters and have your students try to figure out who's who and who's an omnivore and who's a carnivore and all that. So it's really a great opportunity for us to come meet with your school in person and see if that seems like it's a good fit for what you're hoping for with your programming and what makes sense aligned with our mission as well. So, yep, Izzy and I at this time, you can reach out to either one of us via email and we can answer that question and see if we can meet up in person.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. Final question here. How do you increase the accessibility for these programs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So accessibility looks different for everyone. Sometimes we're in schools working with students with cognitive and or physical disabilities, and we're working with partner organizations that specialize in sending trips for high needs folks out, like Wilderness Inquiry, or doing day trips or day programs with schools like that. Sometimes accessibility looks like financial access to these programs. On average, for one student to go to the Boundary Waters on their own through a camp, it's anywhere from $800 to $1,000. We are able to, you know, reduce that cost for these students to either free or incredibly low with, you know, the Thomas Flint Fund or the LCCMR funding or even donations from our amazing supporters, you know, everything from $15 for a trip journal that goes back to a student to a larger donation that allows a whole school to go. Is kind of one of the biggest things in terms of increasing access. As I'm sure folks know, outdoor gear is incredibly expensive. And there is definitely a financial gap in terms of how we can access different activities. So in terms of accessibility that way, that's a huge thing we're doing. And then we're also working with individual students and families to make sure that the needs of our young people and our participants and our chaperones are being met. You know, whether that's additional social and emotional support on trail, whether that's increased chaperone numbers for behavioral support, whether that's talking with a family whose students have additional anxieties about things that they don't want to address with the whole group. We're working to kind of increase access across the board and make the programs feel like they're approachable, easy to opt into, and that whatever's going to come up, Rachel and Allison and myself, along with our outfitters and partners, are going to do our absolute best to accommodate the needs of the folks that we send on our trips.
Yeah, and I'll add in too, I think one of the coolest things about what No Boundaries is doing too is just tailoring the trips based on the schools and the organizations we're working with. And so a lot of what Izzy and I do is talk directly with the schools to figure out what's going to be the most effective trip setup so that the kids have a positive experience. And and feel like they can go on an adventure like this. We have some groups that go out of Ely and will spend their first night at the International Wolf Center. And so that is like a really cool opportunity to slow down and have your first night camping inside, but close to the outside. So that's really cool. Another cool example is that we work with the Fond du Lac area with the Ojibwe School and the Cloquet Middle School and High School there. And those groups will go up and base camp off of the Gunflint Trail so that they can kind of slow down and practice what it's like being outside for the first time. And we'll even send up some members of the tribe who will come up and teach indigenous fire making skills, or trying to really bring culture into experiencing the place where generations of their people had lived before. So it's been really fun and engaging to watch the ability of No Boundaries to really take what is happening with a group and make it the most accessible and positive experience for the kids and students and chaperones.
Whether that's a 3-day base camp trip or a 7-day, truly in the backcountry, out of Siegel or the Sag Channel, our trips run all sorts of different ways. So the goal is that we find the best fit for the schools, and everything from transportation to style of the trip to how long you're out to partners that go out on trail. And no 2 trips that we run are the same.
Yeah, I was thinking about sort of the trip offering. So I'm glad you mentioned the 3-day, 1 week. Are there options for longer trips through friends?
We haven't done any longer trips yet. I think, as we have kind of worked with schools and built an ongoing relationship, I think some of the goals that we've started up with are a really strong foundation of a first year experience. And then growth from there has looked more like adding additional trip groups. So a school that we started with maybe sent 1 group their first year, and now they're sending 3 whole groups of students. We're working on, in the next couple of years, you'll see and hear more about a leadership program opportunity for returning students to come back, join a cohort, be integrated into these trips going on trail, and have more of a leadership opportunity. And, as the requests come, I could definitely imagine more of our consistent partners saying, hey, what about a 10-day trip? What about a 14-day trip? And a big part of it is, does that work with the outfitters? Do they have the capacity to do that? What kids are sending out for that? We want to make sure they're really ready for an experience like that if it's a 14-day backcountry trip. But I wouldn't say it's off the table. We haven't been asked yet. But definitely a growth zone for partners that we've been consistently working with, for sure.
Wonderful. I'm just going to read a question here that's in the chat. The question is, who is the person to get the scoop on details regarding a potential trip?
You can email either Rachel or myself. I will drop both of our emails in the chats. You could even email both of us. Our boss right now is out on maternity leave, and she will be back in early June. Otherwise, she would be on this seminar today. Her name's Allison. She's incredible. She really built this program up independently, solo, and by herself. And when she's back, she'll probably be the point person for a lot of these initial conversations about, is this a good fit? What can this look like?
Do you guys have any fun social events coming up that we could kind of rub elbows and hang out and kind of get to know friends a little bit more?
Yeah. If any of you happen to be free on Saturday, we have a really cool event at Minneapolis Cider Co. Maggie will tell you kind of more about the details of that at the end. But for now, hold your calendars for Saturday because it's a really cool event.
Another question popped into the chat here. Do you work with Sawbill Outfitters?
We have partnered with them in the past for certain things. Our No Boundaries groups aren't outfitted by Sawbill, but they are involved in some of the work that we do in different capacities. Oh, it's .org, not .com. I messed up so bad. Thanks, Maggie.
Actually, only gave it to the hosts and panelists, which is why I put it in the chat. But
.org, not .com. I'd love
yeah,
to.
so are there any other questions that folks have that they want answered now? Otherwise, we will begin to wrap up. I'm not seeing anything popping up.
If you guys do have any questions for Rachel or myself, you're more than welcome to email us. We can always set up a Zoom call or a phone call, whether you want to get your students involved or just ask us additional questions about the programming. Kind of the root of a lot of the work that we do is community building, relationship building, and engaging with our supporters. So if you want to, have a phone call, chat, grab a cup of coffee, or ever looking to kind of learn more about the program from either of us, you can reach out over email and we can set something up as well.
A question just popped in. Can we buy any of the products you mentioned? So
Ooh, that's a great question. You can buy a bunch of the products we mentioned. The trip journals are available on our website merch store. They're $15, and when you buy one, a student from the No Boundaries trips gets one of the journals. The socks are for sale in our merch store. The water bottles that we send to kids, there's a version of those that are available in the merch store. The map bandanas you got to buy directly from True North Maps. But there's a variety of really fun stuff in the merch store, or in person at our events. We often have merch for sale as well.